Değerli misafirlerimiz, bir kez daha hoş geldiniz demek istiyoruz. Şimdi canlanma mı, durgunluğa devam mı konulu finansal merkezler panelimize başlayacağız. Panelimizi İngiltere Emerald Corporation Limited CEO'su ve Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı Sayın Cornelia Meyer yönetecek. Konukları ise Başbakan Başdanışmanı Sayın Dr. Turan Erol, Luxembourg Finansal Center Development Luxembourg for CEO'su Sayın Nicolas Mackel, Fransa Paris Europlace Genel Sekreteri Alain Pithon, Amerika Permal League Mason Yönetim Kurulu Başkanı ve Yatırım Stratejisi Uzmanı Isaac Souede ve Almanya Frankfurt Main Finans Genel Müdürü Hubertus Vath yer alacak. Canlanma ve durgunluk konulu panelimiz başlıyor.
Dear audience, so I mainly would like to make some points about Istanbul Financial Center. So at the time we go back to 2007, where the initial Istanbul Financial Center initiative started. I was at that time also the chairman of Turkish Capital Markets Board. So now looking back, I appreciate really the effort and initiative that we started at that time. So I now see that the efforts are now paying off. I really want to appreciate and extend to my thanks to Turkish finance community for starting this initiative. But my first point will be that after the starting initiative, we made some observations. First observation was that before initiative, we used to think that we can solve every deficiency in financial system, or we can provide any kind of initiative through fiscal policy or tax policy or fiscal measures can solve almost our every financial deficiency problems. So later we understood that it is not correct. We need to work hard and we need more. This was really the first observations we made. And second observations is more general. Indeed, but linked to first one, at the time we used to put the tax issue at the top of the initiative list, but later we understood that tax or fiscal issues is not really the first issue. Human capital, law and regulation, and international access, again infrastructure and business environment are more important, or at least as important as tax issues in prospering your financial centers. Now I just mentioned Istanbul. Istanbul is placed in key financial ranking indexes. The first ranking index is Global Financial Center Index. From that index it is biannual index. We see the place of Istanbul is 57 amongst the 97 countries. So in that index, Istanbul is in the third quartile of the list. But again, in that index, the final edition 2 months ago, Istanbul is spotted as one of the 10 centers to become more significant in a few years. So another index I would like to mention is Carnegie Global Cities Index. Istanbul is ranking 37 among the 66 countries, and again is in the third quartile in that index. My final index I would like to mention is McKinsey and Foreign Policy Most Dynamic Cities Index of 2025. But luckily here, Istanbul is among the 10 most dynamic cities, and its ranking is 14 among the 75 countries. Istanbul in that index is in the first quartile. So it is. So we hope that we will use that dynamic advantage to build the Istanbul Financial Center on it. So from this indicator, I understand Istanbul really has huge potential as a financial center, especially in these least competitive areas. For investment banking, I should say it is the least competitive in Turkey right now, and investment funds follow that, and capital market is more advanced, and of course we have much more advanced banking sector. So this is a kind of list I would like to give you from the least competitive to higher competitive in that. But still, we have really very strong footed banking sector, but I believe there are a lot that we can again develop in that sector as well. So I just here want to make an analogy from the airline industry to see what chance we can have about a financial center. Frankly speaking, I worked as a board member of a Turkish airline company several years. I'm still in some part of the company, in some is affiliated company. But I want to borrow from the experience of this industry. Here I should mention that Turkish Airlines last year it carried about 40 million passengers. 40 million. This year it is expected to have 50 million passengers. But the more interesting is that of this 40 million, 60% is international passengers. 60% is, again, more important is that Turkish Airlines revenue is 85% of revenue is international, coming from outside. So I think this information, this data gives me a lot of courage in our effort to build a financial center which needs to be internationally competitive and fully open international center. So this is really the main points I want to make now.
Thank you. This was very impressive to see your very clear and cold analysis of where you stand and the good articulation of where you want to go. And the next speaker, who is Mr. Hubertus Vath, is somebody who has a lot of experience in building up the position of a financial center. He is the man tasked with building an even stronger financial center in Frankfurt, Germany, which, being British, hurts me because obviously I think we should all be in London. But nevertheless, Mr. Vath is an economist, and he will share his perspectives and insights with us.
Thank you very much. Let me first congratulate Istanbul on its tremendous progress in becoming an international financial center. You've been too humble. You only mentioned that you rank 57 in the Global Financial Center Index, but it was only one measurement before when you only ranked 74. That is quite an achievement to see a rise like that. And it is a clear sign of a clear strategy and meticulous planning, both of which I found to be the case in Turkey. The fourth Istanbul Finance Summit gives impressive evidence of that. Talking about financial centers, and we've done that a lot today, you need to do a little bit of categorization. Is it supposed to be global, regional, or local? Does it have a focus, or should it be broad-based? There are very successful, highly specialized financial centers like Geneva in private banking, for example, Luxembourg in private banking and asset management, or Edinburgh in insurance and asset management as well. However, if you're broad-based, like Istanbul is striving to be, and Frankfurt is for that matter, again, you have to look at how many global financial centers, how many regional, how many local can a market sustain? That was one of the questions Cornelia Meyer was raising in her head. Well, let me give you my best guess on that one. Each continent easily can sustain 2 global, 3 to 5 regional, and any number of local financial centers and numerous specialized financial centers. But let me emphasize one thing. First and foremost, all finance is local. The most important role is to provide business with capital, be it equity or debt, followed by the financing of the state of any level. And today we heard impressively how important it is to close the investment gap in infrastructure. Clearly, Istanbul is a regional, broad-based financial center with a global potential and a global ambition. As it occurs, Frankfurt happens to be the smallest of the 8 financial centers in the world considered to be global, and is amongst the most interconnected and broad-based one in the very same ranking you mentioned on top 10. You've also asked me, Cornelia, to outline what we think are the main tasks to build a financial center. I want to make 6 points. First and foremost of all, it's monetary and financial stability. We've seen that discussion among central bankers, and it's no secret that Frankfurt is happy to have the ECB and the Bundesbank, and it's no coincidence, but a conscious decision that today Frankfurt is a place where most central bankers are educated. So it's more central bankers than in any other place being trained on central banking. And you also see very, very important pillars of the European regulative infrastructure. It's not only ECB, it's also EIOPA and the European Systemic Risk Board, and with ECB in future is also the supervision of the systemically important banks. The second is open borders, a convertible currency, and free capital flows. They hurt you recently, but they benefited you also much before. And like Thomas Ullmann from Havana said in the previous panel, it's a natural smart thing to do to tie up financial centers which are capital importers with financial centers which are natural capital exporters, like Germany is, due to the fact that we have a lot of excess savings in the country. And here we come to the third point, deep capital pools. It's very important that you have those, be it with insurance company, pension funds, family office, and so forth. The fourth is a stable legal and political environment. Capital is timid as a deer, and secure property rights are the basis for a prosperous financial center in the long term. Fifth, we heard a lot about that, and I want to be a little bit more specific on it, is excellent infrastructure. We heard about infrastructure like airport, like water, like electricity, but there is also a very specific financial center related infrastructure which refers to payments, transactions, settlements all around the stock markets and so forth. But I think we'll hear a little bit more of that. And let me make the last point. It's an open society. It's a friendly place that is open, that allows skills to go into the country and make themselves available. But that is what I found to be fantastic, to be the case. I hardly have seen a city as hospitable as Istanbul. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vath, for really strong words of wisdom. And I see you brought your own support group with you. This is fantastic. This is very good. We very swiftly are moving out to another financial center, to the Secretary General of Europlace, Paris, Monsieur Alain Pithon, who is educated in France and who is French and who has a good long-standing career also at the Treasury, who will talk to us about the particular
in this conference, because it's the first time for me in Istanbul, and also because this summit raises burning issues for all financial centers. It's very important. Perhaps to start quickly, just a global picture about the recent trends concerning the financial centers since the financial crisis. The first one is the growing use of debt capital markets to support the financing of the global economy. And the second one is the growing role of emerging markets in the global finance. Just a figure. 32% share of global capital flows going to emerging economies. May I add another figure, sorry. Since 2007, so the beginning of the crisis, there has been an undeniable slowdown. Only 263 IPOs were recorded last year throughout the European market for less than 11 billion euro, compared to 430 IPOs in the year before. My second focus is about our current and future issues, especially for the Paris financial marketplace, and mainly on regulation and tax framework. Everybody knows that there is a major change in the European financing system due to regulations, Basel III and Solvency II mainly, but other regulation, for instance, also in the asset management sector. So there is a significant trend towards disintermediation of banks and the need to develop market financing, and of course there are many working groups on these questions in France. I want to focus also on a major risk, I suppose shared by many financial centers in Europe and probably outside. It is about the financial transaction tax. The question was raised this morning. You know that in France, of the record, of course, we call the FTT, not the FTD, the sniper tax. You target, you kill. More seriously, this tax risks distorting cross-border investment. If implemented as currently designed, it would destroy a substantial portion of financial activities. Sometimes for some activities, some instruments till 75% of the activities on derivatives, on repos, and so on. So we have to be very cautious about it. But moreover, it will affect strongly our competitiveness, our sovereignty. And with the FTT, the question will not be revival or stagnation. The question will be destruction. Who will be the first on the list? But I'm French, and I remain optimistic. Because I think that we have real advantages, real competitive advantages, and because also we trust in foreign pressure from the European Commission, from our partners also, to emphasize the need for structural reforms in France and in the European Union. Just to remind you some key points about Paris financial marketplace. Firstly, Euronext. Just to mention also that Euronext, it's not only Paris, it's Paris plus Amsterdam, plus Brussels, plus Lisbon. But Euronext as a whole is the second largest stock exchange in Europe, with market capitalization of 2.15 trillion euro last year, just behind the LSE. The second point is that we have 4 French banks in the top 15 European banks. We have also a strong insurance market, which is the second largest in Europe, and as last but not least, 4 asset management companies in the world top 20.
National experience. That is Mr. Nicolas Mackel, who is the CEO of Luxembourg for Finance. He has been a diplomat he's a lawyer by training, did a lot of work with the EU. He's been also a diplomat, and he was the DCM for the Luxembourg embassy in the United States, and he's just come back from Shanghai. So he's very well placed to give us an international comparison and also to talk to us about a smaller financial center, and especially how a smaller financial center dealing a lot with asset management deals with the new regulations of transparency that are coming down fast and furious from the OECD.
Thank you very much, Cornelia, and thanks to the organizers. It's very good to be back in Istanbul. All the more so because in my case, Istanbul has a very special place in my heart, as it was here 11 very happy years ago that I proposed to my wife. So I'm always happy to be back. And first of all, I think I have to start by refuting what Cornelia just said. I cannot speak on behalf of small financial centers. Luxembourg obviously is a small country, but our financial center is a big financial center. We are number one for investment funds in Europe. We're number two worldwide for investment funds after the United States. We're number one for wealth management in the Eurozone. And for instance, number one in the Eurozone for Islamic finance. Many other areas that we cover, we aim for excellence, and I will come back to that. I've been asked to address three main questions, and the first one is what it takes for a small economy to build up a financial center. Luxembourg obviously is a small country and thus has a small economy. But Luxembourg's economy was never the market that our financial center was intended for. Luxembourg is a founding member of the European Union, and as such it is the single market of the European Union which has always been the market that Luxembourg was offering. With EU law on freedom of establishment, freedom to provide services, free movement of capital, Luxembourg can offer the European market as a market. For instance, from my experience in China, I've seen that the Chinese banks, Bank of China, ICBC, and China Construction Bank, the three major Chinese banks, have set up their European headquarters in Luxembourg and provide services to their Chinese clients throughout Europe when they do business in Europe. Still, Luxembourg needs to attract all these people. So what did it take Luxembourg to get to this point? And I think the first point is good location. We are centrally located in the European Union. I think in the case of Istanbul, a good location is obvious. You are and have always been a bridge between the Western world and the East. Luxembourg also, as a small country, had one advantage: its bureaucracy. It has a very small bureaucracy which could thus be very efficient. It is a bureaucracy that is very business friendly and very responsive. In April this year, The Economist magazine, which cannot be suspected of too much Luxembourg friendliness, wrote a piece on Chinese investments into the European Union, reporting that the Chinese investors complained about the red tape, the difficulty that they found in investing in Europe with bureaucracies left and right in all the countries, except in Luxembourg. Great story. You should read it. Above and beyond these soft factors, I think the most important that a financial center needs, especially coming from a small one, is diversity. Our German friend was referring to Luxembourg as being highly specialized. We are highly specialized in many fields. We do not try to be jack of all trades, but we are not a one-trick pony either. Luxembourg is also a country, as I said before, which aims for quality. Expediency has never paid off. But the most important is stability. And I think there, together with other speakers, we agreed that in the present macroeconomic context, what attracts investors is economic stability. Luxembourg is one of the few remaining AAA countries in the Eurozone and has a public debt level of 21.4%, which is half of what the Swiss public debt is and a quarter of what the German public debt is. The second question I was asked to address also relates to small financial centers and more particularly OECD's drive for tax transparency. Luxembourg was a founding member of OECD and has always applied OECD standards. Our double taxation agreements actually are modeled on the model convention of OECD. The recent trend, the recent push by OECD for more tax transparency is something that we have accompanied all along and that we support now. We actually want this to become a global standard. It's a question of level playing field. And I think Mr. Erol, the chief advisor to the Turkish Prime Minister, said it before, tax issues are not really relevant anymore. The clients that come to Luxembourg in the field of private banking now are high net worth individuals which come to Luxembourg because it's a highly sophisticated international financial center which can provide solutions to their very complex international problems. And that is what makes them come. The third question I've been asked to address, and I will stop by there, is how many international financial centers and how can they compete or coexist? I don't think it is up to any of us or anybody at all to put a number to that. I think it would be up to the markets to determine how many IFCs should exist on a continent or globally. The markets will determine that according to factors such as quality, stability, and I think another issue where IFCs will determine, will justify their existence is, for instance, innovation. IFCs throughout history have come and gone. The beautiful cities in Italy or even in Germany that used to be many, many years ago IFCs. They are IFCs no more, but they probably missed the train of innovation, and be it new technologies, be it simply new financial services, following and providing for this demand from the market is very important for IFCs to survive. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and it was very interesting to see that our three Europeans merrily competing with each other. The last speaker is Mr. Stefan Bayer, who is the global head for international markets of Euroclear. And Euroclear is the premier provider for after-trade services globally. And so you, Stefan, are in an excellent position to sort of give us your view on Istanbul and your view on what you expect from a financial center to be workable, and where it's easier or harder to do business.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this topic. I actually, because I am more on the post-trade side than I am on the international financial center side, I have had the chance to experience how over the couple of 10 years the industry has evolved and the competition that has grown. 10 years ago, when we were talking about IFC, not that I have a number on it, but I think that the marketplace and the international investors had only two places in their head. One was the US, the other one was, globally speaking, Europe. Within 10 years, that map has totally changed. Today, there is a significant competition. And it's not a competition between existing IFCs, but it's a competition between the incumbent IFCs and the new emergent ones. International investors have now a much more friendly relationship with new hub, as we call it. But as the governor of Malaysia said earlier, they also aim to become the hub for their region. And Islamic finance is certainly one key aspect of it. I think what we've seen is a fierce competition of IFCs. And the challenge is that you can't have a multiple numbers of IFCs. They will concentrate somehow, somewhere. But there is clearly an opportunity, and it takes time to build the right one for each country or each region. I have been working with the Turkish market now for almost 2 years. And everything that we have done is not just about post-trade infrastructure or even the Bursa Istanbul setup, but it's an ecosystem that needs to be well equilibrium. It has to be well defined, and it takes time. You need to look at domestic demand. You need to look at pension funds. You need to look at your tax systems. You need to look at a number of different elements in order to provide that infrastructure that is fit for purpose. And every country, every region that wants to become a hub has its chance, and clearly Istanbul, as demonstrated in the airspace industry, has the chance to do the same on the financial area. But competition is out there. That's very clear. And we have seen, I remember that when I was in 2002, I think I was in Dubai at that time, we have seen a significant amount of money spent on infrastructure with limited results. So it takes more than just technology to be successful. But hopefully the work we are doing right now with Turkish authorities and the top officials is going to bring fruitions. This morning, it was very interesting that the Deputy Prime Minister has listed a number of countries that have been hit by the recent outflows. Those were Brazil, Indonesia, and unfortunately Turkey and a few others. But the one that has not been hit has been Russia. And we've been working 3 years with the Russians in order to build that ecosystem for their region. And we have launched this service in February. And although the yield of the government bonds have been slightly affected by the situation, relatively speaking, they have not suffered so much of a deep outflow. And that takes time, as I said, 3 years of hard work to get there. And I believe that the work that we are currently doing here in Turkey could also get to the same results.
They also came from a little bit of a lower base because they had some problems before. But it was I liked the thing of having an ecosystem. So let me ask the first question to the panel, which they can all answer, and then let me open it up to the floor, because I think we will have to cut this panel slightly short as the other panels were overrunning, and people may at some stage be conferenced out. So my question is, building on this ecosystem, and I was very encouraged hearing Dr. Erol really tell us very well how he looks at it from a holistic point of view, not just from a tax point of view. Istanbul clearly being at the gateway between Asia and Europe, and also being very close to Africa, has the geographic advantage. It also has the advantage for certain niche products, as being one of the leading countries in the Islamic world. So could you share with us, Dr. Erol, your vision on being a financial center for Islamic products? And could I then ask all of you to comment on how you view that vision?
First of all, I would like to emphasize the Turkish approach to regulation in the financial markets. So I remember in my time, and I now close the following. The most important point is that in Turkey, either for historical or political reasons, frankly speaking, we have adopted a kind of general and flexible, but a more, let's say, more harmonized a regulatory approach, that in it we don't differentiate very much between conventional or Islamic finance. So our approach is here very general, but I think this has much more advantages rather than, for instance, some countries in Asia or Middle East. They make a clear distinction between two markets, a conventional Islamic market, and they regulate both markets differently. But our approach, I think, is also very important, that our approach is very general. And after that, I will say that we really have a very good chance because we have been achieved a lot, especially in the capital markets and especially in the banking sector. We have really very good experience until now as a Turkish market. I think about 2 years, our company started to issue sukuk or Islamic bonds, and our participation, we call them participation banks or Islamic banks, they have been also increasing their share. Now they already has a share of 10% in total banking sector. I think their share is improving a lot. So from that, for me, frankly speaking, the more important is what kind of, if you have really clear regulation in your mind. Frankly speaking, we have very clear regulation in mind, very, let's say, very embarrassing, and very general and very involving regulation for every kind of market and market service.
Mr. Mackel, you come from a highly specialized financial center. What are your words of wisdom for Turkey's aspiration to be the financial center for Islamic finance?
Well, thank you. I was going to congratulate Mr. Erol and the Turkish authorities on their holistic approach. I think it is a very smart move. I think, as we discussed previously, as I had the opportunity to say before, that it's very important to have a very sound, high-quality regulatory environment, the infrastructure you need, but also, as you said, insist on the human capital, because ultimately it's people that make the difference.
Excellent, thank you. Monsieur Pithon, what is your view?
Perhaps just to insist on one point you have raised before, which is, for instance, the public-private partnership to build and operate financial centers. As you know, especially in France, there is a sort of tradition to involve both public institutions, the regulators, and private companies in the economy to ensure a sure framework for constant regulation. Just perhaps 2 facts to illustrate this partnership. This spring, Next launched a new market, Internext dedicated to SMEs, and I think that is also an issue for the financial center. This was a result, of course, of the Euronext initiative, but also an initiative coming from the marketplace. And another point which could be interesting for other countries, which is the constitution of financial clusters for young and innovative financial SMEs on many areas, which are very important to the development of the financial sector, for the economy, for the finance, and also for the regulations, which is, for instance, in risk management, in market data, in financial management, and new channels of distribution. I could add other examples of this model of cooperation.
And you also think that also pertains to sort of Islamic finance as well?
Oh, sorry, yes, also for the Islamic finance. The point is very important because, as you know, we set up a framework in 2008 with Christine Lagarde. To be honest, there is a standby, we are in a standby position for political reasons, but we are very, we are sure that it's very important to develop it, and we want to start again, and perhaps with the help of the Istanbul Financial Center, because it's important. For instance, today in Paris, the president of the Islamic Bank Development is in Paris to meet the Minister of Foreign Affairs to talk about it.
Yeah, we just saw him in London where he was at the G8 Deauville partnership. Yes, and I would like, Mr. Mackel, you have to settle it all when it's all said and done. So what are your, all these transactions, what is your word of wisdom before we give it over to Mr. Vath?
Well, I have to say that I believe very strongly that the Islamic finance is a great card to be played by the Turkish government. I think that, as I mentioned earlier, domestic demand is a key ingredient to the success of a international financial center, and the population will feel naturally much closer to such instrument than to any other types of asset class. So there is a natural fit there, associated with the fact that they engage in massive infrastructure projects, airports, bridges, and the like. And for that, as I mentioned this morning, they are not going to tap on the government bonds, right? So they have to go to corporate sector and to the stock exchange. And they had this challenge over the last couple of years, is that very few large Turkish companies were willing to come to the exchange because they didn't want to be exposed to the exchange. And I think that the regulators have wisely approved a new amendment recently that goes on the transparency directive, which in fact forces people, be it on the exchange, listed or not regulated, to comply with these transparencies, which basically now make it as much of a transparency burden, if you wish, to be listed on the exchange than not. So therefore, they are reconsidering the opportunity to go in the exchange and be listed. Those are very small moves, but they are critical moves to create that liquidity increase. So I really believe that it's a smart strategy.
It's always good to see people who are, realistic and think of that the devil is always in the detail. And with what you do, you are the premier thinker of the devil in the detail. Mr. Vath, you are they're empire builders. You're a financial center builder, maybe also an empire builder. What are your words of wisdom? Because you've been so instrumental to get Frankfurt where Frankfurt is.
Thank you. My distinguished co-panelists outlined two very important aspects: human resources and market integrity. There is nothing to add. I can only subscribe to these 2 points. Let me add one thing, which is certainly nothing to do with empire building, which is clearly proximity. I think if you look at where India gets its money at the time where they need it most, it's non-resident Indians with specific deposit schemes. When you think at the time when China needed finance most, it was the overseas Chinese community which financed either through Hong Kong, through Singapore, and through Taipei. And I have wondered, when is the time when you really considerable and very successful and prospering Turkish community, and once you start tapping them, because I believe there is a great pool of capital which would be familiar with what is going on, which would be proud of what's going on. Just to give you a number, because I'm always astonished by it myself, it's 4.5 million Turks that live in Germany. 1.6 million of them are Turkish citizens, 2.9 million of them are of Turkish origin, and they have yet to play a major role in coming and financing here.
Fantastic. So now I think we will have very few questions because we're running so much behind, and we are the ones who have to, take up the slack for that. I would suggest, are there some questions around? There must be. We have such a very distinguished panel. Well, are you sure you have no questions to this panel? And in that case, I would say we probably should wrap up in order to let the next session halfway be able to start on time. Allow me to just summarize very quickly what we've heard. I mean, I was very struck by the need to create, and what Turkey really is looking at, creating an ecosystem to have a financial center. And stability is the operative word there, stability and quality. but also innovation, because one has to be nimble and adapt to new things, such as the disintermediation of banks and Basel III, or and the new tax regulations, which Luxembourg was able to cope with very well. What this ecosystem has to have, what as Mr. Vath pointed out so very well, it has to have the legal framework, the deep pockets, the tax side, the infrastructure, the location, and the openness. Openness is very important. What is also very important, obviously, is the proximity to the markets. And in that sense, we all have to congratulate Turkey and Istanbul for having come so far, so fast. And we are anticipating that next time, at the next, when the next poll is taken, you are in the top 10. So on that happy note, thank you very, very much for being such a wonderful audience.
Panelistlerimize teşekkür ediyoruz ve plaketlerini vermek üzere sahneye Türkiye Büyük Millet Meclisi Eski Plan ve Bütçe Komisyonu Başkanı ve Cumhurbaşkanlığı Başdanışmanı Sayın Ertan Yüle'yi davet ediyorum. Buyurunuz lütfen.
Getiriyor musunuz? Evet. I think first, this is a beautiful lady, eh? Evet, bir dakika. Sonra İngilizcesini söyleyeyim panelistlere. Bir konuda dikkat çekmek istiyorum. İstanbul, borsaların saatlerinin çalışması bakımından uniktir, bir tanedir. Ne demek istiyorum? Tokyo borsası açıldı, kapanmadan 1 saat evvel İstanbul borsası açılıyor. Bir merkez finans. New York borsası açılmadan evvel de 1 saat İstanbul'la beraber çalışıyor. I tell you. So between the time of lag. So, sen. Yeah, image. None of them, neither Luxembourg or the others. None of them. So the Istanbul Finance Center could be opened or before closed to Tokyo location, and on the other hand, in the west in New York. So Istanbul covered all of them. So now come to then. So I am very pleased to give a plaque such a beautiful lady.
Oh, you're so kind.
No, thank you very much. And on the other hand, of course, really, I have benefits all of you. Thank you very much to all of you.
Thank you.
So,
We also thank you.
vereceğim şimdi. Vereyim mi? Ben size de geldi. Getir. So, thank you.
Yes, exactly. It's an honor to. It is a great honor to receive a plaquette from the father of the great Professor Dr. Murat Yülek.
Thank you. So, getir kızım. Turan Bey. So Turan Bey is also a very close friend of mine, and also the very close friend of the Dr. Yülek. He served the Turkish market a lot when he was head of the sermaye. Sen onu söyle. Yeah, thank you. Okay.